What's up, everybody? Good morning. We almost made it to the end of another week, and we've got to do our pass rush Friday before we get to the weekend. So let's go ahead and hit it. Let's see how the Seahawks did in terms of pressuring the opposing quarterback. This week was pretty good overall, I would say. Watching the game, it felt like the pass rush was solid, not amazing, but overall pretty effective. So let's take a look here real quick before I get into the numbers here. My horror week on Twitch continues on later tonight. So if you're interested in seeing me play various horror games on stream, then head on over to my Twitch tonight when I go live, probably sometime after dinner time, and we'll have a lot of fun over there. All right, so defensive line, we're going to start there. Draymond Jones led the way with a couple of QB pressures. I thought he played really well in this game, actually. He's starting to show why we made such a significant investment in him before the season. He had two pressures in this game, according to PFR, and Jarran Reed had one QB pressure. So nothing from anybody else, but honestly, these are the only two defensive linemen who play that much, right? Like Mario Edwards is getting whatever's left over from these two guys. These two guys are getting a massive majority of those snaps, so it's hard for anybody else to even have a real chance. So not really unexpected there, and obviously some of these guys are either not playing or barely playing. Brian Monet, by the way, apparently he's not where they expected him to be in his rehab, so he may still be a ways away from being able to play. By the way, Jarran Reed has now met my preseason projection, so he is well outplaying my expectations of him as a player when we signed him. So great stuff there. Reed is killing it right now. Linebackers, we only had the one QB pressure from this group. It was Jordan Brooks. He got another one, and he continues to show that he is a weapon rushing the passer. This is he's gotten at least one QB pressure in 4 of the last 5 games he's played, and he's also registering sacks. He had half a sack in this game, so he's this is the best he's ever done rushing the QB in the NFL for sure. So the hope is that we continue to allow him to do that. Keep him out of coverage, even though he's playing pretty well in coverage so far this year. Keep him out of those situations and allow him to continue to do this because he's better at it than he is in coverage. Wagner's been a little bit quiet in this area lately. Feels like he's not having a ton of success on the blitz, but realistically, we're sending a lot of those double inside linebacker blitzes, and only one guy gets there. So I don't. What else do you expect? And honestly, with Wagner's speed being what it is at this point, I don't know how much we want to send him on the blitz. Granted, we don't want him in coverage either, but it makes sense to me that his blitzing abilities might be a little less effective right now. But we'll see where this goes with Bobby as we move through the season. Again, blitzing was one of his strong points as a player last year in LA, so going to have to continue to grind on that. And edge rusher. So it was actually pretty productive in this area. It was the most productive the edge rushers have been outside of the Giants game, which is not even fair. Nwosu had one pressure before he left with the injury. Mafe had a pressure, which was also the sack. And Darrell Taylor had two pressures, one of which resulted in a sack, the other of which resulted in the half sack with Jordan Brooks. So Darrell Taylor had his best game of the year, and that's I mean, saying that is a little backhanded, right? Because Darrell Taylor also had the miserable attempt to hold the edge against Dobbs on the TD run. So, I mean, he's just a flawed player. That's really all there is to say about it. Nothing from Derek Hall, so that's 4 pressures from the edge rushers. Pretty dang good, honestly. I will live with that, especially with Nwosu missing more than half the game. Cornerbacks. We did not get anything in terms of QB pressure from the quarterbacks in the cornerbacks in this game. More on that in a second, though. And then safety, nothing from there as well. So that gets us to a grand total of 8 pressures, all of them coming from the front 7. Now, we get to 8, right? We got 8 quarterback pressures in this game. If you think about that game, if you go back and think about how that game went down, we had a QB pressure from Witherspoon that resulted in a sack that was called back on an unrelated penalty. And then we had Mafe's pressure forcing the interception to Witherspoon that was called back on a penalty. So neither of those plays count. So if those 2 plays, if we just hadn't committed the penalty, now I know Mafe was the one who committed the penalty on his pressure that didn't count, but I don't think he did anything wrong. I think it was just a poor circumstance. I think he was just put in a bad situation, and he hits the helmet because he's swinging through trying to knock the ball out. It happens. I'm not mad at Mafe for it. I don't think he did anything wrong. It's just stuff happens. Again, I'm not saying it was a bad call. I don't think it was a bad call. Some people were saying, oh, that's ticky-tack. I don't think it is. I think that's a standard call in the current NFL. But my point is, if we had just been a little cleaner here and not had those 2 penalties, there's your 10 pressures. 10 pressures and 5 sacks, by the way. So that's super efficient in terms of converting your pressures into sacks. So that was really the difference between us meeting the 10 pressure a game goal that I kind of have and falling a little bit short. So that's certainly one way to look at it, right? There were certainly other opportunities in this game for us to get pressure. Like, I think Dobbs dropped back to pass like 40 times. So there were other plays as well you could have done a little bit better. However, in a game where you lose Uchenna Nwosu midway through and you get snatched out of 2 really good QB pressures by unrelated penalties or only partially related penalties, yeah, I'll live with that. So, not bad. You'd like to be better, sure. You're going to need to be better in future games, but at the end of the day, what we really want to see from this Seahawks pass rush, I think, is consistency and stability. We can't have games like this in week 1 where we had 3 pressures against the Rams. We need games where we have 7 pressures or 8 pressures, and then sometimes you get to the double digits, 10 or 11, and then sometimes you have a game where you get 14 or 15. It's the fluctuations that cause problems. It's these games where you just have no QB pressure whatsoever that are really a problem. So let's try to just get away from that and it'll be okay. So having 8 pressures in a game is fine, is totally workable, totally reasonable. All right, so that's basically all I got for this Pass Rush Friday. It's pretty good. It's going to be interesting to see what Frank Clark is going to do. Obviously, he'll be added to this list in the near future. And losing Uchenna Nwosu is a killer. I know he wasn't playing amazing yet this year or anything. I know he wasn't going off, but he's a very good player. And he was our Edge 1, ED1. So I'm not going to sit here and pretend like his absence, even if it's not necessarily him who's dominating, then you have to concede that him being out there means there's less focus being paid to a guy like Mafe, because a lot of people are talking this week about how Mafe has the highest pressure rate of any player in the NFL, but his double team rate is also very, very low. And part of the reason why is Nwosu is drawing some of those double teams. Now, it's also because of Draymond Jones and Jaron Reed doing a good job drawing attention in the trenches, but Mafe is going to have to deal with more double teams now because Nwosu's out. So I have a little bit of concern about what trickle down effect this is going to have on Boye Mafe. All right, so that's about it. I'll see you guys later today. More videos coming. Go Hawks. And that is your Pass Rush Friday for the week.